Alright, going to be shooting my first mag of reloaded ammo. This is 4.8 grains of CPE pistol powder with a 110 grain 30 carbine Hornady bullet. Alright, here we're going to go, see if they function. Perfect, dude! That ejected right there.
Hell yeah, dude.
Miss. Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Dude, did you see that?
I didn't see it, but I heard it.
My very first reloads, and they ejected like 5 feet from the gun. Hell yeah. Alright, 4.8 grains of CPE pistol powder worked perfectly. So we're going to move on to the first H110 light load, which is 7.5 grains of H110, same overall length, 110 grain Hornady. So 7.5 grains is a little light. Alright, so the 7.5 grain of H110 did not function the gun properly. One of the bullets didn't want to chamber, and then the rest of them were failing to eject. Not enough slide velocity. So I am now going to move on to the 5 grain load of CPE pistol powder. So the first 2 loads of the CPE pistol primer, 4.8 and 5.0 grains with the 110 grain Hornady, functioned well, ejected the brass nice and close, but they were obviously pretty low velocity, not a lot of punch behind them. So I figured those would be really good for a plinking load. And then the first 2 loadings of the HP 110 at 7.5 and 8.5 grains didn't function the gun properly, so those will probably be loads I don't use anymore. I'll probably stick with between 10.5 and 11.5 grains of HP 110 for the 110 grain loadings at a 1.389 overall length. Seemed to do really, really well in the gun. So here's the next one. So now we are moving on to the 8.5 grains of H110. 7.5 wouldn't have functioned the gun. Maybe this will be a good little plink load.
Go ahead.
All right, a few of the H110 bullets are having a problem with failing to feed. I think that's because of the bullet misalignment, or the crimp isn't quite good enough, so those I'll have to resize. They did function the gun, although they were still pretty light, so now I'm going to move on to 5.2 grains of CPE pistol. All right, moving on to 5.4 grains of CPE pistol. This should be a little under factory loadings, but will function fine. All right, 8.5 grains of H110 did function the weapon, but 9.5 should be a little better. All right, now we're up to 5.8 grains of CFE pistol. The 9.5 grain load of H110 worked good, functioned the firearm right. This should be a little bit hotter. All right, the last load was 5.8 grains of CPE pistol. This is 10.5 grains of H110. The 9.5 functioned the gun well. We're just now getting to the point where it's about slinging brass like factory loads, so my 11.5 H110 and 6.2 CPE should be pretty hot. All right, final loading of HP 110, 11.5 grains. All right, final loading of CPE 6.2. This should be really hot. The 11.5 of H110, that was pretty hot. All of them function. All right, so after that shooting day, I discovered that all of the CPE pistol powder loads worked well from 4.8 to 6.2 grains. Although 5.4, 5.8, and 6.2 were probably the best loadings, 5.8 being the most reasonable, about the same power as factory, but has only slung the brass maybe 10 feet, versus the HP 110, the first 3 loadings barely cycled the gun at 7.5, 8.5, and 9.5 grains, but the 10.5 grain was about as hot as factory ammo, slung the brass 15, 18 feet, but the 11.5 max load, that slung the brass almost 30 feet and was noticeably hotter than all the others. So I think that'll be my hot self-defense loading with hollow points will be 11.5 grains of the HP 110 with a 110 grain full metal jacket 30 carbine bullet. And then I'll probably keep that same powder load, maybe increase it by 1 grain, so like 12.5 grains for the 100 grain hollow points. And then I have 85 grain Hornady XTP hollow points. I'll probably put 13.5, 14 grains behind that. Get those up 1700 foot per second. That'll give me about 520 pounds of muzzle energy. 17 to 1800 foot per second. That'll be a really, really good self-defense load. Guaranteed expansion with the hollow point. Devastating. So I'm going to be loading up some more, but all my test loads have been fired. I figure out what works. And yeah, it all functioned pretty good.